Is God a conservative? Andrew Klavan, Iowa State University. Daily Wire. Someone, one of the last Andrew Klavan video, mentioned this. They said, this Andrew Klavan spoke in my university. Is God a conservative? It's probably going to be stupid, but he might be right. Let's hear it.
Exhausted just from doing that. And I've heard this is great, so I'm really excited. Thank you to YAF and also to the Herbolds. Robert and Patricia Herbold sponsored this event for me, which is great. I try to keep my speeches as short as I can because I really come here to talk to you. I want to hear from you, and I hope you'll ask questions. Ben Shapiro always tells people if they disagree with him to come to the front of the line, but Ben's speeches aren't guaranteed 100% correct. So if you disagree with me, just sit quietly and try and figure out where you went wrong. They always tell you to open speeches with a joke, and I'm actually going to do that. Unfortunately...
You already did! It's you! You're the joke!
It's not a very funny joke, and even if it were funny, when you explain a joke afterwards, it kills it, and I'm going to tell this not very...
Andrew Klavan, the worst Spider-Man villain.
funny joke, and then explain it. So this entire experience should be a nightmare.
It already is.
Here's the joke. A guy dies and he goes to hell. And the devil shows him 3 rooms and tells him to choose which room he's going to spend eternity in.
Okay.
In the first room, he sees people planted on their heads on concrete. In the second room, he sees people planted on their heads on broken glass. In the third room, he sees people just standing around having a cup of coffee, but they're standing in excrement up to their knees. He says, well, it's hell. It's not going to be great, but I'd rather sit around having a cup of coffee and standing up. So he chooses that room, and the door closes and locks, and a voice comes over the intercom and says, coffee hour's over, back on your head. All right, that was a 4, I think 5. The point of the joke is that the condemned man has no perspective, right? He has to make a decision that's going to have long-lasting consequences on very, very little information.
Delivery is awful. All right, fine. Hold on, I can do a better one. Okay. So St. Peter messes up the paperwork at the pearly gates, and by mistake, accidentally sends an engineer to hell. Okay. The engineer gets to hell, he talks to Satan, and Satan's like, oh, I'm sorry for the mix-up, but while you're here, you know, could you anything you want to do? And then the engineer's like, you know, it's really hot in here. You mind if I take a look at your AC? And Satan's like, oh yeah, the thing hasn't worked in millennia. Engineer goes and fixes up the AC. Anyway, a couple weeks go by, God figures out, oh no, Peter messed up. Okay, and he calls Satan and he says, hey Satan. Okay, God says, hey Satan, give me my engineer. And Satan's like, oh no man, he just installed a new set of escalators. I think I'm gonna keep him. And God's like, what? You can't do that. You sent him to heaven, or I'll sue you. And then Satan goes, oh yeah? Where are you gonna get a lawyer? Okay. That's my heaven and hell joke.
And I tell you that joke because it's a perfect metaphor for being a young person, being about the age you guys are now, right? This is the time in life when you have actually the least information about what you should do, but you have to make the decisions that are going to last your whole life. You got to make decisions about what you're going to do for a living, who you're going to marry, whether you're going to have kids or not.
I face that every day. It's not even being a kid. Nobody's laughing at my joke. I demand you people laugh.
And you've seen so little at this point that you don't even really know.
No, get it? Get it? Because all the lawyers are in hell? Because God can't get an attorney. Okay, let's go.
What you don't know. And you can make big mistakes. This is why Bernie Sanders has a lot of young people following him, right?
Oh!
They look at freedom and they think it's hard. It's like standing on your head in concrete. And at least in socialism, the crap only goes up to your knees. Now, There are people around who try to give you perspective. Technically, these people are called old people. And you can tell old people because they keep saying things to you like,
Why is that colored person drinking from the water fountain?
I was a boy, I had to walk 10 miles in the snow to get to school. Okay. And who cares, right? I mean, if the guy wasn't smart enough to be born when there were cars, what business is that of yours? And it really is true.
Yeah. My grandparents didn't even go to school, so...
Old people find ourselves in this kind of strange situation, is that you actually do learn things over time. You actually, if you keep your eyes open, you do become wiser over time. But on the other hand,
not always.
We have no idea what your lives are like, really. We have no idea what young people's lives are like. Things change so quickly. We can't tell the difference between Instagram and TikTok. We don't know what it's like to have a date in this current society. But what we're trying to tell you, what we're trying to hand on to you is not really that we walked to school 10 miles in the snow. What we're trying to tell you is we're trying to give you a little bit of that perspective. We're trying to tell you that there weren't always cars, that things weren't always the way they are now, and they won't always be the way they are now. Because when you come into a situation, you think it's just the way things are. But situations are really fluid. You think people are just standing in their knees. And I'm certainly not going to tell you how to worship God. And I'm not even going to tell you who God will allow you to sleep with.
Okay, this is a point.
And you may or may not be happy to hear that I'm not going to tell you whether to believe in God or not. And I'm certainly not going to tell you how to worship God. And I'm not even going to tell you who God will allow you to sleep with. If you want, you can invite Matt Walsh, and he'll tell you all those things. But what I am going to discuss with you is the role God played in creating the world.
Don't drink in the middle of a sentence.
World that you're in. And the ways in which you think about God are going to affect the world that you go into and what happens to the world going forward.
I say, God's not real. Therefore, you're not real, Andrew Klavan.
And I'm going to talk to you about this because I feel that nobody talks about it. Nobody talks about it from a political point of view. And what I'm trying to do, really, is just convey to you that the situation you're in is fluid. The things you have that you love may not last. The things that you have that you hate may not last.
Is he describing the whole I had to walk through blizzards to school thing?
Yeah. It's going to be the same 10 years from now. And a lot of it is going to have to do with what you believe and the ideas that you bring to the table.
God, he is just...
Now, the minute you start talking about God, the first question
just get to it. Get to the point.
Is who can I sleep with? But the second question everybody asks is which God are we talking about? We're talking about Jesus Christ. And the reason I talk about Christ is because in some sense, every...
You sure you're not going to talk about Yahweh?
Single one of us is a Christian. Nowadays, we like to say we're talking about Jesus Christ. And the reason I talk about Christ is because in some sense, every single one of us is a Christian.
I don't like this.
Nowadays, we like to say that we're Judeo-Christian because we love our Jewish friends, but we're lying to them. We're not Judeo-Christian. This is a Christian country from a Christian that grew out of a Christian civilization.
Oh, shit!
Now, the minute you say that, the minute you say, is this a Christian country? Is this a Christian nation? You usually can start an argument.
Yeah, for good reasons.
And the argument is usually political in nature. And one of my favorite sayings that I made...
At Capella University.
So, yeah, like I've said many times before, like, these people don't actually care about religious freedom. They just want to force conversions on people. They want to force people to be Christians. They may say they care about religious freedom, but only if you do it within a narrow strip of what they approve of. If people like Andrew Klavan were writing the Constitution today and writing the Bill of Rights, you wouldn't get the right. You wouldn't get the right to worship whatever you want. Let's be real.
Is politics makes you stupid. And the reason political conversations make you stupid is usually you're in them to win them. You're not in them to listen. You're not in them to discuss things. You're not in them to learn. You're in them to defeat the enemy and hear the lamentations of his women.
We learned that from Ben Shapiro. Well, it just sounded like I'm fucking Ben Shapiro's wife. That's not what I meant to say. But
So when we talk about, are we a Christian country, the minute you start talking about that, what people start talking about is the founders. Were the founders Christians? Which founders were Christians? How many?
Who cares if they were? It ultimately doesn't matter. It ultimately doesn't matter. When they wrote the Constitution and Bill of Rights, they didn't specifically say anything about a Christian God. Now, the Declaration of Independence wrote we have, the inalienable rights endowed to us by our Creator. Hold on. Yeah. Yeah, okay, that is the Declaration of Rights. Okay, that's Declaration of Independence. Okay, I was just checking real quick. And, funny how all these people never mentioned Christianity or the Christian God in the Constitution. Yeah, funny how that is.
Were deists? Why did Thomas Jefferson cut all the miracles?
Some of them were deists, not all of them.
Out of his copy of the Bible. Why did John Adams say that we weren't based on Christianity, but he said our Constitution is only fit for a moral and religious people? Were there the values that went into our documents, were they Christian values or were they Enlightenment values?
Yeah, he just implied there that Christianity is, an opponent to the Enlightenment.
None of those questions matters. Not one of them matters.
This is an hour long. Do we really want to do this?
Every single one of the founding fathers was shaped.
Is there a Q&A like at the end? Okay, there is a Q&A. So maybe it's only like, it's only like 20, 30 minutes. We can do this.
To his core by Christianity, because every single person in the Western world
times 2? We might do that. I'm gonna go get my stuff out of the oven real quick. His mic is sensitive. What? You don't like his lip snacking? I would think you would like that, Hal Malcolm. He sounds like he's in slow-mo. Oh, God, he does, yes. I'll be back. Celiac Ben Shapiro's wife's boyfriend confirmed. Hey, I am many wife's boyfriends. Did I know that Ben Shapiro's wife is a real doctor? Really? As opposed to like a fake doctor? Like a chiropractor? Alright.
Was shaped to his core by Christianity.
Okay, we're speeding this up because, oh my God.
Christianity dominated the formative centuries in which the modern West was made. As I'm sure you know, Europe started out being called Christendom because it was where the Christians lived. And you knew you were in Christendom because if you said, hey, I don't believe in that, they set you on fire.
Europe existed long before Christianity did, you bitch. I'm sorry. I'm looking at myself. It was the fucking Roman Empire before Christianity came. Oh, Julius Caesar means nothing to you? Oh, Alexander the Great of Macedonia means nothing to you? Oh my god. Oh, the pagans, they weren't real. What's two
The West was shaped by Christianity in the same way you and I were shaped by our childhoods.
We
You
can't
rebel against your childhood values.
We can't do two. We can't do double speed. We'll do 1.25. All right.
You can change your childhood values. You can have new values. You can come back to them. You can stick to them. But whatever happens, till the day you die, you will have been shaped by your values, by your childhood. And that will stick with you forever. And it sticks with the West, that its childhood was shaped in Christianity. So
Shaped by a lot of things. I wouldn't specifically say Christianity. It's one of many.
what is the shape? This is great, I have to say. It's a great one. There's a new book out by an excellent historian named Tom Holland, and it's called Dominion, How the Christian Religion Remade the World. Here's a quote. To live in a Western country is to live in a society still utterly saturated by Christian concepts and assumptions. 2,000 years on from the birth of Christ, it does not require a belief that he rose from the dead to be stamped by the formidable, indeed the inescapable influence of Christianity.
Yeah, you're making it sound like a totalitarian oppressive regime. I don't know if that's what he means, but that might be what he wants, though.
Whether it be the conviction that the workings of conscience are the surest determinants of good law, or that church and state exist as distinct entities, or that polygamy is unacceptable, its trace elements.
Well, that polygamy is unacceptable. Man, the Church of Latter-day Saints is a Christian church.
Whether it be the conviction that the workings of conscience are the surest determinants of good law, or that church and state exist as distinct entities.
Church and state exist as distinct entities. Is that Christian? Is that specifically Christian? Is there something in the Bible about that I'm not familiar with? I know you can like interpret some of it as like this is the king, this is versus this is our church, but like I don't think it's the same as he's implying.
Or that polygamy is unacceptable.
Polygamy? Okay, fine.
Trace elements are to be found everywhere in the West. Now what that means, and Holland goes into this in great detail, it's a doorstop of a book. What this means is that when a Western atheist and a Western Christian are arguing, they're both arguing through Christian principles. Consider this.
Are they? He has to demand. This is so weird, dude.
Many Christians believe that homosexuality is a sin. Homosexuality has been declared a sin for most of the history of Christianity. But go on Google and find yourself a map of where gay people have full rights, and you'll be looking at a map of Christendom.
Okay. Let's take a look. All right, so deep blue is legal. Light blue, civil unions are legal. And then prisons here in Africa. Now, leaving out Christian African countries, I've noticed. Not, I know, to Klavan, those don't exist, but leaving out Russia, I notice. Russia is Eastern Orthodoxy, if y'all aren't familiar with it. Eastern Europe, Eastern Orthodoxy. It's been around longer than Protestantism has. Alright! Also so slimy when conservatives try to say, you know, they try to take credit. Yeah, gay people can get married, gay rights. And it's like, you people have been fighting this tooth and nail for the last 100 years.
Holland argues that the very
Yeah, you don't get credit for that. We have it in spite of you people, not because of you people.
category of homosexuality was created by Christianity. The idea that there could be a person who is a homosexual did not exist before Christianity.
That's not true. Yeah. Oh, that's a good face. Not true at all. There's like contemporary. There's like old records like in countries like China of people being gay, and what do you know? It was perfectly fine until the Christians came, and now it's not allowed.
And I argued many years ago during the real debates over gay marriage that the debate was essentially a debate.
Someone brought their fucking baby to this. Oh my God.
Between the Christian shall not and the Christian judge not. It was an internecine feud, a family feud. The same thing is true about the rights of women. You will sometimes hear our friends on the left, or just atheist friends.
Yes, ancient Greece as well. You're right. They were very gay.
Say that women are oppressed by Christianity. They cite biblical texts forbidding women to teach in churches and telling women that they have to...
Hold on. I gotta hear it again. I'm sorry.
The debate was... And I argued many years ago during the real debates over gay marriage that the debate was essentially a debate between the Christian shall not and the Christian judge not. It was an...
Okay, among Christians, yeah, that kind of was the debate. He does have a point there. Because there weren't, okay, during that time, there wasn't very many, but there were Christians who were like, yeah, this should be allowed. Because of the shall not do it and judge not. Because there were some Christians who were like, oh, I don't agree with it, but I don't want the government saying you can't do it. Now, there wasn't very many of them, but there were a few who did. And over time, you know, public opinion has shifted. Also, public opinion has shifted, so now, you know, less people are religious and going to church than ever before. And, gee, I can't help but wonder if people like you or why.
Internecine feud.
I'm not wondering, I know, I'm telling you.
The family feud. The same thing is true about the rights of women. You will sometimes hear our friends on the left, or just atheist friends, say that women are oppressed by Christianity. They cite biblical texts forbidding women to teach in churches and
not just Christianity, but yeah,
telling women that they have to submit to their husbands.
Yeah, and the Bible verses that say that, it's just an excuse they came up with to justify. These were written by some men. It's just an excuse they came up with to justify telling the women what to do. Come on. I'm sorry. If you're hearing this from me, I'm sorry to break it to you. The Bible's not written by God. They say it's inspired. It's not divinely inspired. It's written by men who are all... It's written by men in a time where no one else can read and write. They're doing it just so they can justify holding power over you and justify why you need to come to church and why you need to shut the fuck up and let me tell you how to live your life and donate 10% of your money to the tithe. Give us money.
But again, take a look at a map where women have rights. It's Christendom. It's a map of Christendom.
It's more like it's a map of money. Better countries that have better socioeconomic development and stronger histories of infrastructure. And stability. Long-term stability. Yes. it's not Christendom that brought these rights, especially a lot of it's only been like accomplished in the last like 20 years. Hold up. The first country to legalize gay marriage was like the Netherlands. And it was like only in the early 2000s? Hold on. Well, that's not technically true, but okay, timeline of same-sex marriage. The year 2000, 21st December 2000. Queen Beatrix of the Netherlands signs into law the first same-sex marriage bill in the world. Previously cleared the country's Senate 19th of December on a 49-26 vote. And the House of Representatives on a 109-33 vote. Law came into effect April 2001. So that's the very first law passed that allows same-sex marriage. There are, okay, for a nation, there were a few other places across the world where gay marriage was never outlawed, and there were a few like smaller states and districts that allowed it. But that was the first full nation to allow it within the year 2000. So, like I've said, this is a thing not because of Christendom, but in spite of it.
Holland explains that the Christian approach to women was revolutionary. Aristotle thought women were nature's inferior version of men, but the Bible taught that men and women were both made in the image of God.
But women were made out of Adam's rib, so...
Jewish law allowed divorce, which in a world where women were dependent on their husbands was...
Hold on, what? What? I'm sorry, Fox Jedi, I don't know what that emoji is. Inspired by a plant? Plant! Most important factor is education, yes. Or are you talking about burning bush? Wait, what? I don't know what you're wanting me. Some Native American tribes, women were given the power of chieftains. Yeah. Weed, yes. Oh, yeah, one more thing. Have y'all ever actually, like, read the Bible? And like, some of the parts of it? You've seen the angels? Like, the many-winged creature, and then the ring with all the eyes, and then the first thing it says is, like, do not be alarmed. And it's like, oh yeah, someone totally ate some shrooms and had like a fever dream while crapping themselves, and this is what they saw. That's totally what happened.
Inferior version of men, but the Bible taught that men and women were both made in the image of God. Jewish law allowed divorce, which in a world where women were dependent on their husbands was basically cutting them loose, leaving them with absolutely nothing. But
not necessarily.
Christ forbade divorce. No one had ever
wait, what was written when you're saying the Bible wasn't written by God? I was joking. Okay, yeah. Okay, that makes sense. Sorry, sometimes I look at the chat and it's like, it's been like a minute or two and then I'm like lost. I don't know what you're saying. Angels have 7 faces and flaming swords. Shit is terrifying. Not every angel does. Just like that one did. There's horrifying stuff. There's some wild stuff going on there. It'd be nice to see more like movies with, you know, creatures like that. But that's probably, you know, now that we have CGI, that would be a lot more interesting. Okay.
Leaving them with absolutely nothing. But Christ forbade divorce. No one had ever thought of the idea that fidelity in marriage applied to men. That idea did not occur to anybody until Christ reminded people that man and woman become one flesh, and the church decreed.
That's some reaching. I'm sorry, Andrew Klavan. That's, I don't know why. Okay.
That marriage was a sacred state that required both men and women to be faithful. You can see the mind working that creates equal rights for women over time. So think of Christianity as a spiritual nuclear blast.
Man, I I know I say conservative brains like don't work, but I still kind of feel like there's something different in the brains of Christians that operates differently than me. Because when I hear people making excuses like that and saying all this, I just wonder, like, what else in your life are you going to use this reasoning for? Oh boy.
It begins, there's white light, everything is destroyed. Old customs, an old way of thinking, everything is just wiped out. And then the radiation starts to spread out.
You mean like a fungus? That's absolutely not. Christianity did not wipe out everything before it. In fact, a lot of Christianity, he wouldn't like this. A lot of Christianity is actually taken from pre-existing conditions. It's actually taken from pre-existing religious beliefs and pagan beliefs that existed long before Christianity ever did. The whole concept of Jesus coming back from the dead is arguably taken from Greek culture with Astrea, I think was her name, a demigoddess who was part of. He came down to help the humans, and then was put in danger, and then she left, but she said she'll come back. Bayonetta, no, Astrea. That's got to be her name. In the Greek gods, and it's like, wow, this is very clearly very similar to the story of Jesus Christ. I wonder if they took inspiration when writing it. And some people have argued that the concept of Jesus rising from the dead is similar to the Egyptian gods with Ra rising and carrying the sun. I think that's it might be some connection. I think the connection to Astrea is much more obvious.
It sinks into the skin. There are mutations that are born. And even when you go forward and when people have forgotten about the nuclear blast, those mutations become new kinds of creatures. They don't even know that they were formed by the blast, but they remain.
Yeah, Lamau, what the fuck indeed, right?
Formed by the blast. So this creates a problem when we deal with cultures formed by other religions. And at this moment, we are dealing with problems of the culture created by Islam. So this creates a problem when we deal with cultures formed by other religions. And at this moment, we are dealing with problems of the culture created by Islam.
It used to be the problems created by China. It used to be the problems created by the Germans. It used to be the problems created by the Irish, the immigrant. But now that we've moved on, and now that we've all these people are folded into the white umbrella, and Chinese people, they're okay. No, now it's Islam. Yep. Now it's those brown people. It's not what he said, but we can read between the lines. Yeah, yikes indeed. Damn, Klavan.
Now I'm constantly...
Okay. He's describing the cultures created by Christianity, created by Islam. Kind of like when you're you have a lawn of grass, and then your neighbor has Bermuda grass, and you don't have Bermuda grass. You got the nice clover blend, but then the Bermuda grass, he doesn't put up a divider between your lawns. So then the Bermuda grass slowly tries creeping its way into your lawn. That's the unstoppable tide of Islam. Is like Bermuda grass to Andrew Klavan, right? I don't have a lawn. Don't have lawns.
Problems of the culture created by Islam. Now I'm constantly getting tagged by the left as Islamophobic, a word that has literally no meaning in real life.
I was gonna say, gee, I wonder why you're getting tagged as Islamophobic. Oh, it has no meaning? Oh. Yeah, it kind of does, Andrew Klavan. Whether you like it or not doesn't define whether or not it has a meaning. Now, I could sit here and say, you know what? I don't like Islam either. Okay, easy. But you don't see me going on behind a podium talking about the culture formed by Islam and how it's creating a conflict with our culture made by Christianity. I don't do that. That's weird.
Nobody has a phobia about Islam. They're worried about the violence that has occurred in the Islamic world.
Okay, so it's a phobia of violence that you think occurs because of Islam, Islamic people. Guess what? Violence happens here too. Guess what? World War II was not started by Muslims. Not started by Islamic nations. Started by you precious Christian ones.
I want you to understand that nothing that I'm saying is about Islamic people, Islamic persons. An Islamic person can be a wonderful, wonderful person, and a Christian person can be a terrible, terrible person. We all know this, or it could be vice versa, or either way, right? What I'm talking about is ideas.
The kid's crying.
And the powerful effect they have on cultures over time. So recently, the president of France, Emmanuel Macron.
I'm going to talk about ideas. I need to get a soundboard and ideas. Just have Dave Rubin.
In his speech denouncing Islamist separatism in France, the idea that Muslims can live in France but not participate in French culture. Here's part of what he said, okay?
Hold on, let me hear it again. Let me finish chewing and hear that sentence again. He started to sound like a professor I had in college. He was an Islamophobe. I had him for jihad and reform in Islam. That was the name of your class? Oh my god. He also complained about gay people calling him homophobic. Glad it was not yet. I'm a trans woman. Oh boy. I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to call you a boy. I'm not calling you a boy. I just say oh boy a lot. Because it's the easy way of saying... Instead of saying oh god, I say oh boy. I tried to do that. Okay. That sucks. Sorry you went through that. I like using the word jihad though, because jihad just means struggle. That's just what the literal translation is. So you can be instead of the struggle is real, the jihad is real. People who don't know what it means are they might look at you what? I love that.
Macron, in his speech denouncing Islamist separatism in France, the idea that Muslims can live in France but not participate in French culture. Here's part of what he said, okay?
That's fair. Let's hear it.
In the Republic of France, obviously. In the Republic, it is not acceptable to refuse to shake hands with a woman because she's a woman. In the Republic, we cannot accept that someone refuses to be cared for or educated by someone because she's a woman. In the Republican...
Mike Pence won't eat with you if you're a woman. Just saying.
Republic, it is not acceptable to drop out of school for reasons of religion or belief. In the Republic, one cannot demand virginity certificates to get married. In the Republic, we must never accept that the laws of religion can be superior to the laws of the Republic. And then
yeah, virginity is so weird. I mean, oh my god, that sentence sounds stupid. I mean, people demanding, I want to get married to a virgin. I'm saving my virginity for marriage. No, don't do that. Why would you do that? That's weird.
After he says that, he pauses and says, after I've said all this, it's not a question of...
Because you and me, baby, ain't nothing but mammals. All right.
...to the laws of the Republic. And then after he says that, he pauses and says, after I've said all this, it's not a question of stigmatizing any religion. What we do not want to do is have a program against Islam. That would be a profound mistake. Now, in the French Constitution, it states that France is a secular state. So Macron has the legal right to tell French Muslims that they can't break the law for religious reasons. But here's the problem.
The United States is a secular state too, by the way. Secular state is not the same as atheist state. Secular state means the government does not interfere with religion in any way. An atheist state would be like the Soviet Union. Everybody's going to be an atheist. We're going to shut down religious institutions. We don't want that. That's not good. And you don't want a theocracy where people are required to do something, or there is an official state religion. The secular state is the ideal. Mwah, that's what we want.
The entire idea of a secular state is a Christian idea.
Oh my God, shut the fuck up. No, it's not.
It never existed in the minds of men until Jesus spoke the words, "Render unto Caesar what is Caesar's, and unto God what is God's." Before that moment,
oh, that's his justification? No. No. Hold on.
religion and the state were one. They were intertwined. They were inextricable, okay? The greatest controversy throughout the Middle Ages as Europe was taking shape was the controversy over
Okay, that's not true.
the minds of men until Jesus spoke the
But
words,
that's not
"Render
true."
unto Caesar what is Caesar's, and unto God what is God's." Before that moment, religion and the state were one. They were intertwined.
The Romans didn't fucking force you to pay tribute to Jupiter. Am I incorrect? Did the that didn't happen, did it? Did like Roman soldiers, you gotta give your monthly tribute to the gods? They didn't do that.
They were inextricable, okay? The greatest controversy throughout the Middle Ages as Europe was taking shape was the controversy over
He's not wrong? Who are you? I'll ban you too. No, I'm kidding. No. Is he not wrong? How is he not wrong? Tell me. Now, just because the states before, the states before, because the concept of a state today is very different than it was back then, but the states before never explicitly made a distinction between the idea of a state religion and a secular religion. That distinction didn't exist. It didn't even exist when he's talking about this. That's a much more modern thing. Used to be many of the states were intertwined with the Catholic Church. Oh, you're correct. I'm correct about virginity. Okay, yes, okay. Render. I know the render unto Caesar quote, but that's not. I'm sorry.
who had the power to appoint bishops, who had the power to put the crown on the head of the king. Was it the church had the ultimate power or the state had the ultimate power? And that created a world in which you could discuss church and state.
It was usually the church.
In which you could say,
well, not necessarily the church. The state still did it, but usually they sought the church's approval. I think Napoleon was like the first one who didn't. He crowned himself.
there's got to be a separation of church and state. That entire idea couldn't exist until Christianity had created the idea that there was a secular world and a religious world.
Yeah, okay. No, because the original quote is coming in response to a question whether it was lawful for Jews to pay taxes to Caesar. And, okay, gives rise to multiple possible interpretations about the circumstances under which it is desirable for Christians to submit to earthly authority. It's not necessarily the idea of church and state, at least in a contemporary way. This is kind of like rewriting history to say whatever you want it to be. Or not rewriting history. What's the word for that? There's a term for this. I don't remember. When it's like you look at history and you try to interpret it in such a way to confirm your biases. I don't remember the term for it. I don't remember. All right. I studied ancient and medieval European ancient history in college. Yeah, you have a BA. That's good. Revisionism? I think that's it. Yes. Napoleon, our secular emperor. Yeah, he kind of was. Of course, I know a lot of us kind of think Napoleon is like in the past vaguely. Napoleon was emperor and like crowned himself after the formation of the United States. It's not that long ago. He sold us Louisiana in the Louisiana Purchase. That was him. So the idea of separation of church and state is a much more contemporary thing than what Andrew Klavan is trying to portray it as.
There's a very thoughtful book called...
He might say that the idea was put forth by Christ in the Bible with that line, but I think that's really reaching. And historically speaking, that doesn't seem to back up. No, that doesn't seem to back it up at all.
That there's a secular world and a religious world.
The Romans paid no mind to the Jews, neither did the Greeks. They thought the Jews were weird for only having one God. It's about what I thought. They didn't really care unless they got, like, their tax money, right? They liked having a buffer state to stop invaders, or at least to slow down potential invaders from other places. So they were fine with it. Yeah.
There's a very thoughtful book called Islamic Exceptionalism by Shadi Hamad, who is at the Brookings Institute.
Hold on. What about the First Persian Empire? They were religiously and racially equal. They also respected women and homosexuals, probably some of the most religious people out there. That was a long time ago, but I haven't looked all... They respected women and homosexuals? I never heard that part before. The gay part. I mean, maybe. In the times, it was pretty different. All right, let's go.
There's a very thoughtful book called Islamic Exceptionalism by Shadi Hamad, who is at the Brookings Institution, which is kind of a center-left institution.
Isn't she the person who left Islam and is like now running an anti-Islam train? I don't know.
Hamad points out that, unlike Jesus, who was a dissident, Muhammad was both prophet and politician. And more than just any politician, he was a state builder, as well as a head of state. Not only were the religious and political functions intertwined in the person of Muhammad, they were meant to be intertwined. To argue for the separation of religion from politics is to argue against the model of the very man Muslims most admire and seek to emulate.
Okay. Actually, I can kind of see this one.
Where you get Sharia law, the idea that the law and the state must be ruled by Islam. You don't have...
Okay, he doesn't know what Sharia law is. Sharia law isn't necessarily the state. A lot of the time it's just like conflict dispute being organized like within the mosque like leadership. Within your own community. It's usually what it turns out to be. Many Islamic countries still have like law, and Sharia law is separate from it. Law, like, you know, oh, you murdered the guy because, you know, you didn't like him. That happens here too. We can't have murder. You're gonna go to jail. And it's not Sharia law. That's... Okay.
Have the separation of church and state. And as Hamad points out, the Quran is different from the Bible because the Bible is supposed to be inspired by God. But the Quran is written by God. So every word, every letter is his word. It can't even be translated into another language. I read the Quran in English, but that doesn't mean anything. You have to read it in Arabic to understand it because that's the language God wrote it in. We can...
There's also a numerology thing going on that doesn't perfectly translate over into other languages.
Translate the Bible because we think the ideas are what we're passing around, and we don't think the words themselves were written by God, just inspired by him.
Well, okay, I've met some Christians who think it was.
None of this means that a Muslim can't be a good Frenchman or a good American. What it does mean is that when he is a good Frenchman or a good American, he is conforming to norms that grew out of Christianity. Even when we say that Islam is a religion of peace, we're saying that it must conform to an idea about religion that arises from Christianity. We don't even know we're doing this because the effect of Christianity is in our very skin. It's in our pores. We don't know. We think what we're doing is we're being incredibly tolerant and loving, and we are being incredibly intolerant and loving, but we're being tolerant and loving in a specifically Christian way because we don't know any other way because we're all Christians.
This is so fucking weird and slimy, dude. You may call it, like Jordan Peterson, you might think you're an atheist, but you're actually not. atheists who think they're atheists, but you're actually Christian. No. You're just coming up with a weird definition and then saying it applies to everybody. Nobody else fucking agrees with this definition.
Now, here's a funny thing.
I've never met, you know, those wild pastors that show up, those wild preachers that show up at college campuses, and you see them on like the corner on the side of the road. They don't agree with this. Most people don't agree with this.
Okay, the book I'm talking about.
It's like the bad Christian movies where atheists are angry at God. God's not dead. I watched that whole movie. It was so boring. Honestly, the worst thing about it, I'm less upset about, oh, the atheist is actually angry at God. I'm not as upset about that as I am with how boring that movie was. Like, I could have, if I made that movie, it would have been much better. It would have been less boring. I watched that recently. There's a sequel to it. Yeah, it's a horrible fucking movie. And people who like it, it's like, I've never really got, I would like to debate someone on that. But I feel like people that really like it are all kind of in the camp of like, they want to force other people to be Christian. But I think a lot of Christians are like that, but I haven't gotten to confront anyone on it. Some people get really defensive about that movie. It's really weird.
How Dominion has the subtitle, How the Christian Religion Remade the World. But the author, Tom Holland, is from England. And in England, the book was published with a different subtitle. See if you can spot the difference. There it's called Dominion, The Making of the Western Mind. Holland told the Wall Street Journal, British editors are more prone to worrying that the mention of Christianity on the cover of a book will frighten the horses, which is an English expression for cause social trouble. I wrote a series of young adult adventure stories called The Homelanders. It was published here in America, but it was sold to England for a lot of money. One day, I got the manuscript back from England, edited, which never happens. Usually they just publish the American edition. I said, why did you edit my manuscript? And they said, well, we want you to take out all the references to the Bible and to Christianity. It was a young adult novel written for a Christian audience. It starred
I have some doubts he's telling us the full story here. No, I put him at 1.25 speed. The regular speed is much slower.
Christian young man who occasionally made references, like at one point he was being...
That's regular speed. I'm sorry. He's a little too slow for me. Speak for yourself. Pax Americana is like the Roman and British peace. Pax Religion, Patriot, we say. That's true. Yeah. I'm in the buffer state between the U.S. and Mexico. I'm just kidding. Mexico's not gonna fucking invade us. Mexico, are you kidding? Mexico loves us. People in Mexico, listen. People in Mexico, as far as I'm concerned, they're all American. Okay? They are not that different from the people here.
A Christian young man who occasionally made references, like at one point he was being chased by the police and by terrorists, and he had to steal some money to stay alive. And so he would make a reference like, yes, I know the 10 Commandments, but I need the money to stay alive. That's what they wanted taken out. When I refused, and I had to refuse 5 times.
I got a suspicion he's not telling us the full story.
When I refused, the biggest bookstore in England cut their orders down to like a 10th. The book died the death because it wasn't in the bookstores. And I have not been published in England since, okay?
Yeah, he's not telling us. There's more to this. There's plenty of English books that talk about God and stuff. You kidding? What? Have you considered maybe... Okay, more likely, they're like, you know, Andrew Klavan, you're kind of a heinous person. You got some heinous stuff in the book. It's not necessarily the God stuff, but it's it's you specifically in your ideology. We'd like you to change it. And he's like, I'm not gonna change it! And that's probably more along the lines. Or maybe it was just like minor stuff, and then he was like, no, fuck you. And then they were like, well, if you're gonna be hostile about it, we're not gonna publish your book. Bye-bye!
What I'm trying to tell you is that Europe does not...
Like Milo tried to make a book a while back, and his editor was like the same person who was like Rush Limbaugh, who did Rush Limbaugh's books, and the editor like cut ties and said, I'm not going to work with Milo. Milo can't write. Milo won't listen to me. He's not worth it. He's not worth my time. I will never work with this person. And it's like, this guy worked with Rush Limbaugh. I had no problem for like 20 decades. Yeah, he's that old. 20 years, no problem. Milo, nope. Milo was just an especially odious person. He hated working with him. And, you know, maybe Andrew Klavan's something similar.
Published in England since. So.
Yeah, there are whole ass Christian sections in every bookstore. I do that thing in my mind where I hyphenate, and after reading the XKCD comic, instead of whole hyphen ass, I do ass hyphen Christian. It's whoops. There's 2 sequels to God's Not Dead? You're kidding me. Maybe I need to look at the others. No, I don't need to. Fuck that.
Okay. What I'm trying to tell you is that Europe does not want to identify itself as Christians. When the European Union, after all I just said to you, telling you that they were formed by Christians, that they are the continent formerly known as Christendom, when the European Union was formed and they wrote the Constitution, they refused to put any reference to Christianity in it. The priests wanted them to say, oh, it had...
Yeah, they took it from us. The United States, baby! They're inspired by us.
It's Christian roots. They wouldn't do that. They won't use, as you probably know, they won't use the term when giving the date BC or AD, before Christ, right, in the year of our Lord. They won't use that anymore. They have BCE before the Common Era and CE in the Common Era. But the division between BCE and CE is the birth of Christ. So they're just lying.
So they're just lying. Oh, no, you're just lying. No, they say, maybe they're doing this because they're like, you know what? You know what? We don't really think Christ was real. We don't really think he was the Messiah. But we're willing to acknowledge that we're still using this numerical number system for years that we've been using for the last 2,000 years. We're not going to change it now. Okay, Andrew Klavan's argument here essentially boils down to saying, curious, you say you don't want to use the Christ. You say you don't want to use the AD before Christ system. Let's try the whole thing again. You say you don't want to use the before Christ and after death system, and yet you still use the same numbers for years. Very curious. I am very intelligent.
Why do they do that? Why do we hold Christianity to different standards than other religions? Our friends on the left get furious if a Christian, if Mike Pence, says that homosexuality might not...
Nah, could it just be we're better? Have you ever think about that?
...be optimal. They hate the guy. They're ready to take him out and set the optimum. On the left get furious if a Christian, if Mike Pence, says that homosexuality might not be optimum.
Okay. AD is... I know, dummy. Really? Oh. Wow, you're right. AD doesn't mean after death. It means Anno Domini. Translates to our Lord. Or in the year of our Lord. I never knew that. Holy shit. I always thought, wow, shit, maybe Andrew Klavan was right. The Christianity fungus has infected my brain. I never knew that. That's incredible. Wow, thank you for telling me that. Wow. Going from before Christ to after death cuts out 30 years of Jesus' life. I knew that, but I always thought that was like an inconsistency on the part of the Christians. Wow. That's incredible. Thanks for telling me this. I'm so glad I learned that. Cool. Okay. Learn something every day. See, we learn something on this stream every time.
Optimal. They hate the guy. They're ready to take him out and set him on fire. But in Iran, they still execute homosexuals and they defend that practice. And you don't really hear about that much from the left. You know, they don't really complain.
Because I don't live in Iran, you fucking idiot! It sucks! No, that shit sucks! I hate it! But you know what? I'm not going to Iran. I don't want to go to Iran. I don't live in Iran. So who gives a shit about Iran? Oh, wow. That's interesting. Andrew Klavan, you say you don't like it when people eat babies, but down the street, I'm pretty sure that weirdo that just moved in with the giant beard, I'm pretty sure he eats like 5 a week. What? You don't hear Andrew Klavan saying anything about that. Guess he doesn't really care about people eating babies that much. Every stream, I'm gonna talk about cannibalism.
About that very much. The book The Handmaid's Tale, which I'm sure you know is a TV series, is based on the Islamic Revolution in Iran in 1979. That's what it's based on, when the Iranian mullahs came in, brought the country from the modern world back into Islamist rule, and women lost all their rights. That's what the book
is. That really what it's about?
Is based on, inspired.
I thought it was based off of Christian. Hold on. Is that really what it's on? Background. Does it mention this? Because you pull up Handmaid's Tale, background. Talks about Puritan New England. Talks about Ronald Reagan, the Ronald Reagan administration, the Christian Coalition, the moral majority, which is neither, by the way. Yeah. I don't see... Is it here? I don't see anything here about it. The Republic of Gilead? Gilead? I don't know. Yeah. Atwood's inspiration for the Republic of Gilead came from her study of early American Puritans while at Harvard. Atwood argues that the modern view of the Puritans that they came to America to flee religious persecution in England and set up a religiously tolerant society is misleading. And that instead, these Puritan leaders wanted to establish a monolithic theocracy where religious dissent would not be tolerated. I 100% agree with that. When you look at some of the religious beliefs of those early people, they were fucking whack. It was only later when, like, the rest of Europe realized there's a lot of money to be made on this continent that these people and their political power kind of diminished and went away. You could say good old capitalism helped that. Klavan just straight up made up Atwood's inspiration. Yeah. What a shock. I wanted to. I thought of an edgy thing to say there, like, well, he also believes in God, so I don't want to be edgy here. I don't want to be r/atheism edgy here. Who'd have thunk it? Yep. Due to the totalitarian nature of Gilead society, Atwood, in creating the setting, drew from the utopian idealism present in 20th century regimes such as Cambodia and Romania. Those aren't Islamic nations. Well, Romania might be. Hold on. I actually don't know Romania. But that's not even... Isn't Romanian Orthodox? Yeah, 80% of Romania is Orthodox. Okay, that's what I thought. Yeah, it was a Soviet state. Well, there were Soviet states that were majority Islamic, but... Alright. Well, I've seen enough. Eastern Christian. Well, in the United States, Eastern Orthodox, we don't see that many Eastern Orthodoxy people in the U.S. It's, yeah. Yeah. Okay.
By. But
I'm banned from Iran? I might be.
Christians. Why? Lost all...
I've heard that China has banned like some celebrities because of because they said like American celebrities who've like I support independence for these places. Yeah, you're banned. No, you're not coming to China anymore. Maybe Byzantine. Well, that's how they formed, right? That's how the divide between Catholicism and Eastern Orthodoxy began. Was the split in the Roman Empire. We got the Western Roman Empire and the Byzantine Empire, and the Byzantine Empire, Orthodoxy, Eastern Orthodoxy. So we could still, yeah. How cool is that? We could still see the ripples of the Roman Empire all these years later.
Iranian mullahs came in, brought the country from the modern world back into Islamist rule, and women lost all their rights. That's what the book is based on, inspired by. But the villains in the book are Christians. Why? I don't know.
They just made it up.
If you've ever seen the movie V is for Vendetta by the guys who made The Matrix, the evil Christians hunt down a gay man who speaks lovingly of the beauty of the Quran. The Christians are the bad guys. The Quran is beautiful, whereas, of course, in real life, it would be the other way around.
I thought in V for Vendetta, it was an explicitly atheist state. No, wait, it wasn't. There was like a priest who was. No, it was a Christian state. It was a theocracy. Yeah, I didn't like V for Vendetta. All right.
Why do we see oppression in Christendom, in the Christendom that made us free, while ignoring the oppression in other religions and even becoming...
Could it be because Christianity didn't make you free? And you're kind of looking at this from a perspective of someone who is a Christian, who is looking back on like 2,000 years of oppression kind of done by you people, and you're saying, oh, you're engaging in motivated reasoning, and historical revisionism, trying to say, actually, this stuff makes us free. Actually, the Christians were the good people. Actually, it's all Christianity that's contributed to the rights of gay people. And to everyone else who's like not Christian, it's like, no, this is pretty fucking brutal. Not even that. Not even everybody who's not Christian. Many Christians who are not the right flavor of Christian have to deal with this. Ask a lot of Mormons, right? Now, okay, I don't like the Mormon church either, but ask a lot of them about like how they are treated by like your standard Protestants. It's usually kind of negative. You know? Everyone talks about leftist infighting. Everyone casually forgets about theist infighting. Well, it's kind of waned off after Trump. Yeah, 2020. Okay. It's kind of waned off after Trump. Like this used to be the big thing, but they kind of lost. Yeah, they don't have Christian conservatism doesn't quite have the same power that it once had in the United States. Now it's all Trumpism. The book V for Vendetta was better. He was an anarchist. I'm sorry, I didn't like the movie. I didn't read the book.
Angry at people if they point out the oppression and calling someone Islamophobic.
Oh, also like, the UK used to be like really, really, like religiously speaking, really, really religiously oppressive. Yeah, especially the Jews.
Religions, and even becoming angry at people if they point out the oppression and calling someone Islamophobic. Why do we do it? Let me hear the sentence again. The beauty of the Quran. The Christians are the bad guys. The Quran is beautiful, whereas, of course, in real life, it would be the other way around.
No, the Quran's it's not the Quran's beautiful. It's that the guy in the V for Vendetta had something that was contraband that he wasn't supposed to have. That wasn't Christian.
Why do we see oppression in Christendom, in the Christendom that made us free, while ignoring the oppression in other religions and even becoming angry at people if they point out the oppression and calling someone Islamophobic?
Don't forget, Shakespeare wrote The Merchant of Venice. Merchant of Venice. In the story, the titular Merchant of Venice was a Jew. At the end of the story, he was forced to convert to Christianity against his will. He was evil. He was a money lender, and he wanted to take his money from our good Christian protagonist. The good Christian protagonist couldn't pay him the money, so the Jewish money lender was obligated to have a pound of flesh, but not a drop more. He couldn't do it. He couldn't bring himself to do it, and then they forced him to convert to Christianity. Oh, yeah, but Christianity made us free, right, Andrew Klavan? Yeah. Not like, that's only like one of the most popular plays written by Shakespeare. Oh, yeah.
Why do we do it? We do it because we're Christians.
And at the end of, at the end of Birth of a Nation, Jesus came down and blessed the KKK, so I always love mentioning that.
Because Christianity teaches us not to condemn the other man, but to search our own souls. It tells us...
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. The whole history of Christianity is putting people to the sword.
Remove the speck from another man's eyes before you've removed the plank from your own eye. It is unchristian to criticize the other guy's religion, but it is Christian to search for the flaws in our own religion and condemn our own flaws.
Yeah, you could say that, but that's not what the history says.
We're in a bind. We're in a paradox. It's kind of a riddle.
Yeah.
It's a little complicated to follow, but once you get it, you see the problem we're having.
I bet.
Say that we are a Christian people seems unchristian and judgmental, which goes against ideas of secularism and tolerance that are all Christian. We try to solve this riddle by turning it around. Instead of acknowledging that we are Christian people, we simply say that other people are really Christian. They too can be secular. They too respect women's rights. They too have a religion of peace. We erase the difference between us by imposing our values on them without even knowing that we're doing it. We think those values just dropped out of the sky. We think they're just human values, just common sense. Of course there's
No, these values have developed over years and centuries of cultural development and education. Yeah, this is... we have a lot of work here. Any chance that Hitler watched that opera? He liked the opera. It wasn't Shakespeare wasn't opera, and that wasn't opera. No, The Merchant of Venice was a comedy. Ha ha! He may have liked it though. I don't know. Favorite way to annoy Christian conservatives when people do that Jesus was a socialist thing. It's amazing. Yeah, by modern day standards, he would be. Yeah, this debunks his argument. What debunks his argument? Himself? I don't know what this is.
a separation of church and state. Of course, women should have equal rights. Who would not believe that? What kind of savage would not believe that? So everyone must believe that. God wants us to be peaceful. Who doesn't think that's true?
Well, that was fun, but we are not waiting that much longer. Bye bye. Oh wow, that was, man. Fucking scam artists. It's like, yeah, you can do all this stuff. Nobody, you're not going to be friend zoned anymore. Nobody's going to ghost you anymore. Fucking tell me, come on.
Not even knowing that we're doing it. We think those values just dropped out of the sky. We think they're just human values, just common sense. Of course there's a separation of church and state. Of course women should have equal rights. Who would not believe that?
No, people had to fight and die for these things to happen. It's not that. It's not that these things fell out of the sky. We have long histories of cultural and societal development that has led to these things. It's not. I mean, if he says it's Christianity, then it kind of did fall out of the sky. But
what kind of savage would not believe that? So everyone must believe that. God wants us to be peaceful. Who doesn't think that's true?
I mean, didn't God tell us we need to kill all the ankleites? Yeah, right? Am I like misremembering it? I don't remember. Maybe that's a dinosaur I'm forgetting.
Paradox became a serious philosophical problem after 9/11.
Oh, yeah, that was getting good.
After the massive influx of Islamic migrants into Europe, which has caused a rise in the rape, the incidents of rape, the acts of terrorism in Germany, England, France, and throughout Scandinavia.
Okay, wow, yikes. Well, we figured it out.
No one wanted to condemn the Muslim migrants because that would be unchristian. But then how could you get the Muslims to adhere to Christian rules like respecting women if you couldn't criticize them because you're Christian?
The data doesn't say anything about Muslims fucking raping everybody. What the fuck? It's weird going from, oh, what's the number one turnout for women, back to people fought and died for religious freedom. Yeah, welcome to the channel. This is the streams that goes on. Yeah. Longest running Chris. One of the longest running Christians are Ethiopian. I'm not sure what that means. Sorry. The sentence is weird.
So several important thinkers began to recognize that they had to solve this riddle or the West would die.
Oh, yeah. Oh, man. We took in a few too many Syrian refugees. Now I think the West is gonna die. We took in a few too many refugees, and some people on 4chan said that there's a lot more Muslims raping all the white women, and that's really scary to me. The West is gonna die. No! No! Come on!
Acknowledge that
you're being sold a lie. It's obvious.
Recognize that they had to solve this riddle or the West would die. They acknowledged that their values were connected to Christianity, and they began to write books about the need to acknowledge that connection.
Okay.
A very fine example is a book called Why We Should Call Ourselves Christians by an Italian philosopher and politician named Marcello Pera. Here's what he wrote. This is shortly after 9/11. He wrote, the West today is undergoing a profound moral and spiritual crisis due to a loss of faith in its own worth, exacerbated by the apostasy of Christianity now rife within Western culture. Without a religion of man as the son and image of God, liberalism cannot defend the fundamental and universal rights of human beings or hope that human beings can coexist in a liberal society. Basic human rights must be seen as a gift of God and hence pre-political and non-negotiable. You all recognize that as the ideas from our declaration, right?
Okay, if it's enshrined to the Constitution, though, then it might as well be better. It's much better, because when something is written in your Bible, I've noticed you people are very selective about when it applies. Ha! Andrew Klavan, very curious. You call yourself a Christian, yet I notice you haven't sold all of your possessions and given them to the poor. Interesting!
We are endowed by our Creator with certain inalienable rights, and to secure these rights, governments are instituted among men. No government on earth had ever been instituted among men for that reason before ours, right? That was an idea that had come out.
I mean, that's not exactly why our government was made. Our government was made because we were fighting a war, fighting a revolution. We won. Now we need to hold it. What was it called? Like, what did they say? Like, a republic if you can keep it? Wasn't that the statement? Wasn't that the phrase? Or was it a democracy if you can keep it? Yeah, a republic if you can keep it. Yeah. Wasn't that by Ben Franklin? Oh, yeah. That was the Constitutional Convention. It wasn't... In fact, yeah, the Constitutional Convention, the Bill of Rights came later. Like, originally when they were all signing the Constitution, like, some of them early on, some of the people were like, yeah, some of the representatives from some of the territories or colonies or states were like, we're not going to sign this unless we have a Bill of Rights. We're not going to go along with this unless we have some sort of Bill of Rights for the citizens. And that's why the Bill of Rights was made. It wasn't made specifically to protect the rights. It was made because people weren't going to sign it if it wasn't made.
Out of Christianity through the Enlightenment.
Yeah. No.
Well, here's the catch, and it's a big catch, all right? Marcello Pera was saying,
no
we have to call
idea
ourselves
what he's
Christians
going on
because our
about.
values were Christians, and if we don't acknowledge their source in Christianity, we can't defend them when migrants come in and do terrible things that we disapprove of, okay? Here's the catch. Marcello Pera is an atheist. His book is called Why We Should Call Ourselves Christians, as opposed to why we should be Christians, okay? He can't believe, he wants to keep the concepts that grow out of Christianity, but he can't believe in Christianity, which I totally respect. Same is true of the writer Douglas Murray, who wrote...
Like homophobia!
He's a controversial conservative...
Hold on. This reminded me of one more thing. You know what this reminded me of? Hold on. Oh boy. Let's see if we can open this. This works. Here we are. Race mixing is communism. Stop the mixing. The race mixing. March of the Antichrist. Race mixing is communism. There was another one somewhere. Communist Jews behind race mixing? Yeah, alright.
Gay British writer who wrote a wonderful book called The Strange Death of Europe and a recent book called The Madness of Crowds. He calls himself a Christian atheist. That's the term he uses. He wants the values of the West, but he can't.
Values of Christianity is what I meant to bring up.
Can't believe in the source of them. And their problem, Murray's problem and Perez's problem, they're not being bad people, right? Their problem is rife throughout the West, especially among intellectuals. Even the people who acknowledge that Christianity is the source of our values can't believe in it. Resurrection and healings and miracles, these things don't happen. Civilized people in a scientific world can't believe in them. Even if they want to believe, belief won't come to them, they can't force it on themselves, and they don't want to lie about it, and I truly do respect that. But I disagree with it.
Okay.
To me, to be a Christian atheist is like seeing footprints in the snow, but refusing to acknowledge that anyone walked there. It doesn't make sense. I became a Christian.
Oh God, that analogy. Okay, to me, being a Christian is like seeing footprints in the snow and saying, it was the Tooth Fairy. It was God. And I'm like, no, it was me. Those are my footprints. I just made them. And they're like, no, I believe. I have faith. And I'm like, but I just did it. You saw me do it. No, you don't understand. This is my faith. I have faith it was God. And it's like, I can't argue with this. What do I do? Yeah.
Because when I acknowledged that my values were Christian values, and when I decided that for those values to be objectively true, there had to be a God, I realized that my God must look very much like the Christian God.
Oh, so you're engaging in motivated reasoning. You have certain values that you already believe. You want them to be objectively true in some way. You can't accept the fact that your values are kind of subjective and based upon how you were raised and the society of which you live and your parents and your emotions and everything you've been through in your life experiences. You can't accept that these are subjective. You have to. So you're engaging in motivated reasoning, saying somewhere out there, something has to provide an objective backing for what I already believe. Therefore, it's easy for me to say, oh, it's God. Never mind that many people, ostensibly of the same religion as me, say the same thing and their values are different. I have to have an objective backing for it. Okay.
So I was baptized because it made sense. Because the world does make sense. This is
okay. Wow. No, fallacy. Because it made sense, appeal to intuition. You know what else makes sense? You know what else makes sense? Bloodletting. Yeah, I need to get the bad blood out of my body so the good blood can help me. It makes sense, doesn't it? Oh, now you died of blood loss.
Important point that we don't think about enough. The world makes sense, and we can make sense of the world.
We can make sense of the world. That's called science. The fact that the world should be simple and easy to understand is a fallacy. It's kind of similar to the just cause fallacy. We can make sense of the world through, like, the electromagnetic spectrum and understanding it. We could see a certain range of it, but there's a lot more going on. We can study it. We can measure it. That's not what he's saying.
Our logic actually applies. If you walk north, you get to Canada. If you walk south, you get to Mexico. Not sometimes, every single time.
Or you could walk north and walk into a fucking lake and drown. So there's a little bit more than just having faith that Canada's north. You need a little bit more logical reasoning to get around it. Huh, there's a giant lake there. Nope, if I keep walking north, I'm gonna get to Canada. Hey, you think maybe you should walk around the lake if you're trying to get to Canada? Maybe you should walk around it. Nope, I have faith.
If you do math right, you get the right answers. If you calculate the trajectory of light, you will find out exactly where light is going to land. The world...
Orbital mechanics is a lot more complex than that. Pick something easier, like quantum mechanics.
Makes sense, and we can make sense of the world. So when we're talking about reality, we have to make sense. That's how you know when someone's talking about reality, because he makes sense.
Wow, that's a horrible fallacy. That's how you know when someone's talking about reality, you know they make sense. You know, if I took... That's so stupid. Oh my god. Okay, no, if I took someone who was sitting across the room from me, if I take someone from NASA, like a top mathematician from NASA, sit them across the room from me, they start talking to me about orbital mechanics, I'm gonna be lost. I'm not gonna understand most of it. Does that mean they're full of shit because they don't make sense? No, it just means I don't understand it because he's talking at a higher level of education than I am. Okay, if you calculate something the wrong way, you can get the right answer. Yeah, and that can be really dangerous if you do it the wrong way. If you do it the wrong way but get the right answer, I mean, that works in engineering, but but like if you do it the wrong way and you get the right answer, that you might say, hey, it worked. Okay, I'll do it again the next time. And then the next time you get the wrong answer and half the building falls over and people die. That's a problem.
So I'm frequently asked by people, especially conservative people, can I be a moral person without faith? Can I be a free person without faith? And sometimes, can I be a conservative without faith?
Yeah, all of it. None of it matters. Donald Trump's especially shown us all of that. Whoops.
And my answer is always the same. Absolutely. Yes, you can be a moral person without faith. You can be a free person without faith. You can be a conservative without faith. But you cannot be those things without faith and make any sense.
Ironically, I kind of agree, but he doesn't understand.
How can you believe in God-given rights if you don't believe in the God who gave them? Women, speaking generally, are physically small.
How can you believe in God-given rights if you don't believe in the God that gave them? Well, I believe in certain human rights that every person that's alive should have certain things like to help them live. That's part of life itself. And God doesn't matter. Like you need water to live, you should get water. You need food, you should get food. You need shelter, you should get shelter. You need healthcare, you should get healthcare. Easy. You need all these things to live and be happy. You should have it. That's what I say. You don't need to factor a God into the equation. I can make more sense if my salary was better. He made the case he's not talking about reality. I don't think he meant to make that case.
And weaker than men, and men can get a great deal of pleasure out of abusing and oppressing them.
I'm sorry, what?
If you don't believe in the God who gave them. Women, speaking generally, are physically smaller and weaker than men, and men...
Wow. This is the same guy who made that video about how he could beat up any woman with the sword, how he would straight up kill them in a sword fight. Kind of weird he keeps going there. Kind of like how I keep talking about cannibalism.
Men can get a great deal of pleasure out of abusing and oppressing them, as we see in the news every single day. How can we claim that men shouldn't take that pleasure unless we believe that women have the same God-given rights as men because they were made in the image of the same God as men?
The fuck? That's fucking weird. How about this? You're a person and your rights end where another person's begin. You don't have the right to fucking abuse someone and hurt someone because you're hurt. Because someone else doesn't have the right. I mean, you do have the right. Someone else doesn't. Like, someone else shouldn't have to be tortured and hurt for your pleasure. Now, unless they're into that, I mean, that's a different matter.
And the reason people don't like to believe these things is because they have ramifications, right? If a woman has inherent rights simply by the fact that she's alive, then when she has another life inside her that is not her own, that life also has rights, and things become very complicated.
What if they're not alive? Oh. What if their brain don't work? What if they never have a brain? What if you're alive but your brain dead? And you're like hooked up to a machine. Should we keep you going forever in perpetuity? I got to get the anti-abortion stuff in there because he's a conservative. What if it's mutual? Okay, hey, just in time, Malcolm.
Without God, there can be no absolute morality.
Hey, you figured it out. We can drop the first part of that. There can be no absolute morality. It depends on a lot of stuff.
Thinkers as diverse as Shakespeare, the Marquis de Sade, and Friedrich Nietzsche have all realized this is true. Without God, we decide what's moral. And what's right to one person may be wrong to another. It's all...
You're goddamn right.
...relative.
Yeah.
This is where you get the idea of multiculturalism.
He went a weird way with this.
Culturalists say that our...
Okay, so reading between the lines, if all morality is relative, why do we have to live with brown people?
Culture isn't morally better than any other because morality is relative, so you should treat other cultures with kindness and respect. But if morality is relative, why should you treat anyone with kindness and respect? If morality is relative, what makes kindness and respect better than unkindness? And
that's actually a good point, though.
Disrespect. If there's no God, all bets are off.
It's a shame because that's actually a good point. Like, who's to say that kindness and respect in one culture shows up the same in another culture? That's true. Who's to say that I have to respect other cultures if I consider them especially heinous? It's true. But he brings it back to God. Why would you do that? No, don't do that. Just say you think cannibalism is especially horrendous, so you're not going to respect people who engage in cannibalism.
The strong can simply use the weak.
It's fine. It's a fair argument. Why do you believe that? You say I don't think people should eat other people
for their pleasure because that makes just as much sense as the opposite. For their pleasure because that, oh God, all bets are off. The strong can simply use the weak for their pleasure because that makes just as much sense as the opposite.
No, you didn't really lay the premise for that very well. Sorry, dude.
What I'm trying to tell you is the problem that we have in our political conversations today is that no one will acknowledge the source of our values, and so no one knows what our values really are or should be. No one knows the basis of their own argument.
You don't even know the source for your values, so you're kind of right.
We can't reach consensus because everyone's afraid to lay out the rules of the game. They're afraid to talk about Christianity and politics because it's not Christian. Either there's a creator who gave us our rights.
That's such a weird way of describing it because I've never heard Christians be afraid to fucking talk about it. Damn, I wish y'all... I wish it was true. I wish y'all would shut up.
Or our rights are null and void. Either our creator is the sort of creator who gives men and women equal rights, or he's a different sort of creator, and we have to reconsider what our rights might be. And either we are made, in some sense, in the image of that creator, or we're meat and
I think he's winding down.
Chemicals. We can be drugged into happiness, or butchered into whatever sex we happen to feel like, or exterminated in the womb when no one particularly wants us.
Okay. I love that, we're 28 minutes in. This whole time, it's nothing about abortion, and then at the end, abortion, abortion, abortion! I know they have, the same 5 talking points they do, depending on whatever's culturally relevant at the time, but, oh man, it's so sad.
We are afraid to bring Christianity into the conversation because it seems oppressive, unkind, and judgmental.
He also wants to talk Bible stuff, abortion is mentioned in the Bible. You may not know this, abortion is mentioned in the Bible. In one part that tells you how to perform one. And that's it. It's not a negative context in the Bible.
and we do not want to be oppressive, unkind, and judgmental because we are Christians. Somewhere along the line, our reason has lost its reason. If we are going to find our way forward in a new and rapidly changing world, we have to go back to the source and start to ask ourselves the hard questions as we begin again. Thank you very much.
I am so glad these people are becoming less and less relevant with time.
Source and start to ask ourselves
Hold on, let
the
me look
hard
at the
questions
people.
as we begin again. Thank
The hard questions. Okay.
you very much.
Oh man, look at this group. Look at this group. Oh yeah, you know these are conservatives. These two down here are wearing the libertarian colors, yellow and black. Look at, should I say it? Should I say it? I'm gonna say it. They're all white. Look at it. All of them. There's one Asian guy in the back here. There's one really old guy. Yeah. They're all white. And some of them look like this. Look at this guy. Oh, they look like I'd expect conservatives to look like. Conservative college students. College Republicans. Yeah. Honestly, why did you even watch this whole thing? I don't know. I don't even know why I did it. I don't know why I do anything anymore. God may not be dead, but I certainly am. Thanks to Andrew Klavan. Thank you to the March patron backers. Dios, Ian DAB, Elsie Hupp, George, Irene Schaefer, James Paul, Jory Bolamo, Laura Day, Mellow Cheddar, Suzanne Hendrickson, and Xylop on Bandcamp. In hindsight, does his entire lecture here even tie into his thesis very much about is God a conservative? Not really, but I guess that's the usual level of intellect we've come to expect from the Daily Wire. But maybe he just forgot. That's okay, I forget things sometimes. Okay.